Very warm welcome to everyone to this webinar hosted by IMD Care. Let's welcome Naina with over 11 years of experience, and she's mentored over 2,000 clients. So without further ado, let's welcome her. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ritika, and welcome to all of you all who removed that kind of time on weekday at 5 when probably you're just getting done with work. So jumping directly into the topic. Now, quick heads up to everybody. Before we start, I would love if you all can be a little active. I understand cameras probably can't be switched on probably because you're at work or you're traveling, but feel free to message, type messages so that I know that you guys are listening and you are following. And if there is anything, we'll of course take it towards the end of the session. But that is one thing that you all can keep doing. So before I start, a quick question from you guys. How many of you all actually got interested only because there was a specific word naturally that was added to this whole immunity, how to boost immunity naturally? That caught your attention. If that caught your attention, you just type why, and I will know that that was the reason why you were interested in the session. All right. All right. So another quick question. I got a lot of advice. So yes, we're going to be talking about the natural bit here. Another quick question, that do you think that there is an alternative when it comes to boosting immunity naturally? Do you think we can do it any other way if not naturally? If you think there is a way, then type yes. Okay. A lot of y'all think there is another way. I would love to know what is that, what are those aspects or what are those alternatives probably towards the end of the session. But there is no alternative, like a real alternative to naturally boosting your immunity. And we will talk about that here. So very quickly, I'll just tell you what are the things that we're going to be covering. The first thing is what exactly is immunity, which I'm sure all of you all will know. I will not bore you with the technical terms. I will just give you a gist of that. After that, we will basically be touching upon how do you identify if your immunity is low or not. And along with it, we will also be talking about how exactly do you go about identifying it. For example, if you're doing blood checks, then what are those small parameters that you can actually go through in order to understand what are the places where you will know, okay, fine, you know what, my immunity is kind of suffering, or probably I have an infection and all of that. So that is the second thing that we will be covering. And then we will jump right on to the ways by which we can manage, improve our immunity naturally. And the last bit, of course, is going to be about the lifestyle tweaks, and then we'll take up questions. Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to be talking about is, all right. So as far you guys are concerned, if you want, you can actually unmute. You can just put in a message again. If you think that immunity is just about fighting disease, do you think that, when I talk about immunity, what comes into your mind? Is it fighting cold, cough? Is it fighting cold, cough for you? So if you think that, if my immunity is about building up or improving my fighting resistance, overall health, yes. So ideally, when I say immunity, does it mean that I am going to make sure that I don't get sick very easily? Correct. So not getting sick is one aspect. Overall health is important for that. Now, there are a whole lot of aspects that immunity actually covers. Going right onto it, now, when I say that my immunity is low, as far as you are concerned as a person, what are your signs and symptoms? What is it that your body will tell you for you to deduce that your immunity is low. So for some people, not getting sick that easily, but as a sign and symptom of the body. So for example, I will say that I get sick very frequently, or I get cold very frequently. That is my way of figuring out that my immunity is not that great. So as far as those are concerned, what are those signs and symptoms that you think will tell you that your immunity is low? Getting cold and tough, feeling weak, feeling tired. Anything else? Fatigue, tired, fatigue, yes. Laziness, weakness. So more or less feeling weak, getting cold and cough, weakness, tired, low on energy, allergies, yes, giddiness. So these are the signs and symptoms. If you keep getting this frequently, then chances are that your immunity is low. Now, here are some of the very basic signs and symptoms which you will probably relate to. Now, for example, you have a perpetual cold, which you said one of the things, sore throat or cough, getting cold or sick very easily. Few of the other signs and symptoms could be that जब देखो food poisoning हो जाता है, या जब देखो my stomach is upset, more or less I eat out and I get an upset stomach, or I've eaten at different timings or erratic time and my stomach gives way. So that is another sign and symptom. You suffer from chronic skin condition. So a lot of people get these rashes or these hives for no reason, all of a sudden, unexplanatory. For some people, it's because of allergy, but for some people, they absolutely don't know, or probably it's because of summer. It could be, and all of a sudden, it has not been there for years together, and all of a sudden, it just pops out of nowhere. It could be because there are, because the immunity is low. You feel fatigued and depleted, which you guys mentioned. You develop any kind of infection very quickly, which means that any infection, it could be in form of fungal infection that you all of a sudden get, or there is some or the other stomach infection that you catch, you keep getting, or a yeast infection for that matter. There is a continuous eye infection that you keep getting. So it could be any kind of infection. You experience aches and pain very easily. So lethargy also comes with that. So every time thoda bhi you feel that your leg is hurting because you walked a little bit more in comparison to your usual day. So it could be anything. The body takes longer time to heal from an injury. So for example, if you hurt yourself, then the time duration, let's say, is 5 days. It takes way more time to heal, and it could be anyway. Even if you've got a cold and cough, or you've got an infection or an upset stomach, the body will take more than its usual time to heal itself. Another one is you rely on caffeine and sugar for energy. So because you feel lethargic, because you feel low on energy, just the sugar and caffeine is what keeps you going at all times. Otherwise, you completely feel deprived of energy. Or you have developed sensitivities over the period of time. So there are a lot of instances where people have absolutely had no issues with dairy or no issues with wheat at all. And all of a sudden, at the age of 34 or a 38 or a 44, the individual all of a sudden starts complaining that this doesn't suit me anymore. So what is it? Because your immunity over the period of time has probably gone down. So those are the signs and symptoms that you can deduce. Yeah. Now, the body immunity depends majorly on these 5 aspects. Now, gestational age, birth weight, and feeding method that you call it. Now, all these things basically are not in your hand. Now, in what way, what was the gestational period? Now, for example, as a kid, the delivery happened, let's say, in less than 36 weeks. It was a little bit of a premature, then, probably a week or 2 weeks lesser than the full term. Or what was the birth rate, whether the child was nourished or underweight at the time of birth. What was the feeding method that was adopted? A lot of times they're directly put on outside formula feeds because of whatever reasons. So these things actually decide the kind of immunity that you have. And that is why, if you've observed, there are a lot of children around that you will see have, like, they chronically keep falling sick, or they chronically have this cold and cough, or they chronically have a blocked nose. That is because the respiratory system probably has not developed because of that short duration, or the gestation age, the time, the delivery was way lesser than expected. So these are reasons, again, which is not in your hand. The second one is age, sex, and genetic. Of course, genetic has a role to play, but it doesn't completely majorly is like a game changer for you when it comes to defining your immunity. But that is one, the age that you have. Now, again, for a teenager, the immunity will be way better than somebody who's a 35, 36. And again, a 35, 36-year-old will have even better immunity in comparison to somebody who is a 60, 65-year-old. So age plays a major role. Apart from that, of course, the sex of the individual. So hormonically, like structurally, women are said to have better immunity in comparison to male because of the hormone complexity that they have. So again, the sex also, the gender also plays a big role. Now, apart from that, again, these two things are not really in your hands, but the other three, which is infection, the other three modules that are there, that play a major role. So infection, medication, antibiotics. Now, the infections, whenever you get it, how do you handle or tackle it? The medications that you take, the antibiotics, the number of cycles of antibiotics that you keep taking in. This decides the kind of immunity you will have, and I will take it up in a bit. Digestion and absorption and elimination, how well or how robust your gut is, will decide it. Apart from that, the food, lifestyle, environment, the way you choose to live your life, it plays a major chunk of the role, and I'll touch a bit of it later as to how you can go about doing it. Now, coming to, we spoke about the signs and symptoms of how do we figure that your immunity, and frankly, that is common sense. Most of us do figure out that, we recently we've been falling sick very often, and for some, we don't. Now, here are a few tests that we usually suggest to, people who've been chronically falling sick. Now, one is a CBC test that we do, which includes your WBC, your neutrophil, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophil, basophil. Now, immunoglobulins, which is IgG, IgA, and IgM, these are the three tests that usually done in order to understand what is your antibody level like, which a doctor will check if you are chronically falling sick. But that's something which is a little advanced. But for us, CBC is something that is very easy. And for us, health professionals, it becomes easier to detect. Why? Because these parameters actually tell me what you might be suffering from. So is it a bacterial infection? So a lot of times what happens is the WBC and the neutrophil count is high, as you can see in this chart. And the rest of the parameters are usually low, means that he might be having a bacterial infection. Or my neutrophil count and my lymphocyte count is on a higher side. Basically, all three, WBC, neutrophil, and lymphocyte is high, and the rest are normal, probably a viral infection. It could be that he has only his eosinophil is high, which means he has some kind of allergy. So these tests, when you carry out a CBC, a doctor or a health professional will be able to figure out what kind of infection are we looking at when we carry out this normal CBC test. Now, for other individuals, what we also go through is, in order to understand where the problem is, whether it is an immunity problem or it is a gut that is creating an immunity problem. So we usually land up doing things like the hemoglobin test. Basically, the CBC includes it. Apart from that, few tests like ferritin, homocysteine, anti-TPO, antibody, TG. So these are basically the tests. I'll just quickly run through it because you don't really need to understand, but it's always good to know, especially, and to be informed, especially when you're going through these tests, because the doctors don't have the time. They have a big bandwidth to cover, and that is the reason why they don't really explain it. But for your knowledge, I'll quickly tell you what it means. And accordingly, you can take action. Now, in this, if you see, now most of these tests tell you whether your immunity is doing fine and at what level you have to work on. Now, very first one is your TPO and thyroglobulin antibodies. Now, these two tests are usually done in order to understand whether you have an autoimmune condition or not. If there is an autoimmune related condition, these two reports will always be on a higher side. So whenever you get it done, so basically I know that my immunity is compromised at a very higher level, and I really need to work way more than the usual, way I would in order to get it in place. The others are the inflammation. Now, quickly tell me how many of you all are aware of the term inflammation? If you're aware, just message, like just type Y, and I will know that you know what inflammation means. Okay. So quickly, I don't think the speed of Y's were too many. So I'll quickly just tell you what it means. Inflammation is basically the way your body is going to react to any kind of bacteria or outside harmful organisms. So for example, when you are hurt, the first thing, like if you got it, like if you got a cut, the first thing the body will, it starts healing, and then over a period of time, it's a brown cover, which is, kind of healing it. So that the infection doesn't go in because it's trying to cover it. So anyway, again, अगर आपको food poisoning हुआ, the body's first reaction is fever आएगा, and the body will start throwing in the form, like in the form of diarrhea, it will start throwing any kind of toxins that it is, assuming is there in the body. Um, Again, if you have any kind of cold and cough, again, it will come out in the form of mucus because it's trying to get out of any kind of bad bacteria or viral or any kind of microorganism which is going to be bad for you. So the body's way of protecting it is through increasing these things like a fever or a cold and cough or a diarrhea, and probably it could be in the form of mucus removal. So this is the way the body reacts to any kind of infection. Now, these inflammation markers will actually, if they are on a higher side, they will tell you that your body has some kind of inflammation and you need to act upon it. So what are those markers? One is CRP and one is ESR. So these are the two will tell me if they are on a higher side, which means that the body is inflamed. आपको ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा. And two more things which actually boost the immunity. One is vitamin D and one is B12. So these two things are extremely important in order to make sure that your body's immunity system is at its peak. So you cannot compromise on your vitamin D and B12 and think that हाँ B12 कम है मतलब मेरे को मेरा blood कम है इसीलिए ही है, so I will take it when I have to. Or my vitamin D is low, so my bone health is compromised, but that is okay. The fact is that these people, these two vitamins are so important and in playing multiple roles apart from just bone health or just hemoglobin, that you can't compromise and the body can't stay for a long time with good, robust activity. And the quick one more that you need to check is your liver profile. Why? Because liver, I'll just quickly touch upon this because liver is very important in order to figure out whether the body is able to process and detoxify. Now, the first aspect that I mentioned, which is medications, antibiotics, and infection. Now, liver is like a watchman. It's going to take care of multiple things in your body. It is going to regulate what comes in your body. It is going to decide what goes out of your body. It will decide what needs to be detoxified. The antibiotics, be it medicines that you're taking, it has to go through the liver in order to get out of the system. If my liver is not in good health, all of this will be compromised, resulting in lower immunity. A lot of individuals have higher cholesterol levels or higher triglycerides level or high allergic reactions. A lot of people are immune to antibiotics. Antibiotics asar hi nahi karti hai. These things are actually, to an extent, the body's immune system is immune. The second reason could be that the liver is not able to eliminate. So it's very important for you to make sure that liver is something that the health is taken care of. Okay, so that's the part. So GGT, bilirubin, and these are the two things. Your GGT, if it is more than 10, which means that the body, the liver is not processing food. So you actually need to work on cleaning up your liver naturally than doing anything else. Okay, so this is just give you a gist of what are the tests. Now, coming to, there are 5. We spoke about 2, which is not in our hands, but the other 3 definitely are. So the first thing is your gut. Now, everything in your immunity is decided by the kind of gut that you have, because you are what you eat, right? So when you eating certain kind of foods, the body is going to use that, metabolize that, and your immune system, in fact, your DNA can actually make change drastically by the kind of food that you're consistently choosing to eat. In fact, whenever we are suggesting any kind of diet to anybody, we have to wait for at least 3 months for to see any kind of result, because the body's turnover time change from a stage A to stage B takes at least 60 to 90 days. So you have to consistently keep working on it. Immunity doesn't build overnight. Immunity doesn't build on a week or a month's supplements. It doesn't build on a month of food that you are eating. it has to be worked upon consistently. And if your digestion is in place, only then will it start actually absorbing and eliminating correctly. Otherwise, all of this is a waste. How much ever good food that you eat once in a while, it's not going to make any difference. So, is there a shortcut? No, there is no shortcut. Be it naturally or be it in a artificial, or if you're taking supplements into consideration, there is no shortcut of the duration for which you're trying to improve your immunity. The liver, as I said, is the first way of figuring out whether your body is able to detoxify and clean up or no. And if not, then you have to consider liver detoxifying it in natural ways. I will be including what foods that you have to take more frequently in a bit. But yeah, this is one thing. Now, the next thing is the nutrient deficiency. Now, the second reason in this whole aspect is the nutrient deficiency. Now, if your gut and your digestion is suffering, then in that case, there are very high chances that your body is not going to absorb food, correct? Now, if it is not absorbing food, how will it make sure that these nutrients are also absorbed from that food? It's not going to be. So you have to make sure that the nutrient deficiency, as soon as you know, they are taken care of. And the nutrients that are mentioned here right now, they are the ones that are going to, that is something that you have to take lifelong. You can't take it just for 2 days, 2 weeks, or a month's time. You have to keep filling up or refilling your body every single day with small dose of each of these ingredients in order to ensure good immunity. So while we have supplements, here what I am trying, because we're talking about how to boost immunity naturally, here are a few things that you can incorporate. Now, vitamin D is something that you can't get easily through supplement, but sunlight again is one good way of taking up the vitamin D. And the way to take it is not to uh, you know uh, sit through glass and get it. You have to take direct sunlight. So you can put your sunscreen and then sit under the sun for at least 15 minutes every single day. It doesn't have, it's not the heat that we need. We need a sunlight. So a morning or an afternoon time is great enough in order to ensure that you get your decent vitamin D. And sun, I'm sorry, not sun fried, it's sun dried mushrooms. So basically, mushrooms, if you can't really get sunlight, it's impossible. One of the ways that you can ensure is by simply sun drying the mushrooms. So just putting the mushrooms under the sun for some time or a few hours, and then using that in your food will also help in increasing your vitamin D. That is something that you can try. A second one is B12. Now, a lot of individuals ask whether, how is it that we can increase our B12? But the fact is that there is no food as such that gives you B12. It is only microorganisms that uh, provide you with B12. And that is the reason why I always say that you don't have to keep sanitizing yourself to an extent where there's absolutely no microbes present in your hands or on your fruits and vegetables. A little bit of it, or being in, being more in touch with soil or earth, grounding, walking barefoot. These are the things which are actually going to help in increasing the good bacteria in your gut, which will then help in production of B12 in the body. So B12 is, there is no food source, but earth by itself, which is full of microorganisms. When I say earth, it's the soil that by indirectly is going to help in increasing your B12. The B12 is actually made in your own gut. It needs certain items, raw material, which you'll get from the earth. And that is how you build B12. A lot of individuals, in spite of being on supplementation, and when they stop it within a month's time or two, they again go deficient. Why? Because their gut health is not great. And the first thing you should be doing is working on your gut by working on elimination diet, which I'll quickly just touch upon in a bit. The third one is folate, which is again through green leafy vegetable. Any kind of green leafy vegetable will give you enough folate, be it wheatgrass, be it methi, palak, microgreens, whatever works for you. Omega-3, again, there are various capsules that are available, but if you're going through natural form, then flax seeds, chia, and walnuts, these are the three omega-3 rich sources that you can use in your daily routine. A tablespoon of any of these works fine. If you think that your body is more inflamed, which means that you catch infection or you have multiple health issues, then I would say flaxseed oil is even better, because that is going to increase the concentration of omega-3. Of course, you have to work, you have to make sure that it doesn't turn rancid. You're not using rancid flaxseed oil. You have to refrigerate it. But yeah, flaxseed oil works amazingly well as far as omega-3 content is concerned. Apart from that, magnesium, that is something that is very undervalued and underrated item. So this nutrient actually works towards, I think out of 100, if I have to say, more than 90 percent of the functions require magnesium, and that is something that we hardly look into. We look into calcium, we look into vitamin D, we look into probably, potassium, B12, D3, but magnesium is something that nobody talks about, and that is something that is extremely important. So nuts, seeds, and pulses, these are the three items that are extremely high in magnesium, and that this is something that you can include in your diet as well. So next one is zinc, because zinc actually helps whatever immunity that you're building. It's going to help in multiplication of those good cells very fast. So that is the reason why zinc is something that you want to include. So anything which is whole grains, and the reason of uh, you know telling people that you should not have processed food, you should not have maida, is not because it's calorie, or because it creates, it's a flour of a danger flour for diabetics, but it is because it is stripped of a lot of nutrition from it, and one of it being zinc. So when you're processing any kind of cereal, you're actually stripping it of a lot of nutrients, zinc being one of them. When you're trying to include millets, it's actually for this reason, that the more the nutrients can be given. It's not because fiber or it's going to help lose weight. It's actually because the nutrient content in these whole grains is much more in comparison. The other one is my vitamin C. Now, vitamin C is something that is it's very important. It's an antioxidant. It fights any kind of inflammation. You might have heard, how many of you all have heard of this term free radicals or anti-aging? Just type a Y if you've heard of it. Yes. So what does anti-aging or free radical mean? Now, whenever the body is under stress, it is going to um, metabolize food, and this breakdown is food or oxygen, whatever it is, it's going to oxidize uh, the whole process, leading to free radicals. Now, free radicals are basically something that is going to injure your DNA, or it's going to injure the parts of your body. Now, antioxidants actually fight these free radicals and make sure that the body is safe. Okay, so free radicals is something that it fights, and this free radical is actually responsible for a lot of anti-aging or DNA damaging or immune related problems. So vitamin C is extremely important, and how can you get it? Avla, one of the best sources of vitamin C is avla. Even one a day is taken, one a day, which is like almost 40 milligrams of avla, which you would otherwise get in a Bicosul, one capsule. So this is way more than that and more effective than that. So that is not only that, it also helps in cleaning up your liver. So vitamin C may you can consider an avla or a guava or an orange or any kind of Indian berries that are available. All of these work fantastically and are extremely high in vitamin C. And the last one is vitamin E. Now, vitamin E is again something that is in the same class of antioxidant. It fights the free radicals. So, nuts and seeds, basically all good fats. It could be nuts, seeds, coconut, peanuts, or it could be avocado, or it could be any kind of fat-rich food is something that a vitamin E will be rich in. Those foods will be. Okay. So now coming to the diet, whenever we are including it in a very holistic way, let's not talk about how many calories, how we should be doing, what is it that I should be, how many, what kind of cereals I should be including. This is more or less that you should be following on a regular basis. You need to just, if you want, you can just take a screenshot of this, and you can actually go back and see how many of these things is something that you include in your diet every single day. So, for example, as Indians, I think spices is something that is very common. So, things like turmeric and jeera, rye, these are the things that we in general use on a very regular basis. But apart from that, there are also other items that you can include, things like clove or black pepper or dalchini. So these are the things which are very potent. You don't need too much of it, but you can find it in some or the other way. In fact, there are these immunity boosters which are in the form of powders, which are mixes of all of them. We use it in the form of chai masalas or garam masalas. But again, the composition will slightly change. And if you think that is too much for me to handle and I can't really include it on a regular basis, but you can simply start with this turmeric, which is supposed to be anti-inflammatory, bacterial, fungal, a lot of things. So if you are suffering from any of the infections, turmeric is something that you want to continuously take. Now, depending upon what body type you are, whether you are a vata type or a kapha type, we can accordingly suggest whether you have to have it in water or in ghee. But turmeric in general is going to be fantastic. Black pepper, amazing. Clove, again, great. Dalchini, again, good item to have. So these are the 4-5 spices that you can include on a regular basis. Apart from the spices, there are these other condiments that come into picture. For example, mint or a tulsi or an oregano or a rosemary. These are small, small items, but they are again very potent spices. You can actually just sprinkle these herbs on the top. So your choice is yours, whatever works for you. The second one is cruciferous vegetables. Now, when I say cruciferous vegetables, they are basically vegetables like your broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, radish, Brussels sprouts. So these are the ones that have to be used regularly. Now, you see how is it that you can incorporate it in your diet? A bit of it in salad, a bit of it in vegetable, a bit of it, probably the leaves of it in your dal, whatever works for you. You want to make a paratha out of it, whatever works for you. Make sure that one serving of this is always there in your meal every single day. What is it also doing is it's working on cleaning up and detoxifying your liver. That is going to be very helpful. And it is also working towards cleaning up your gut and the microbacteria that we call it. So always make sure, whatever little that you can, make sure cruciferous vegetable is one item that you're including every single day in your diet. The second vegetable is your green leafy vegetable, because again, as I said, folate has a very important role in cleaning up the system, cleaning up your liver. It is actually a major pathway that is needed in order to clean up the liver and eliminate toxins. So you have to include green leafy vegetable in whichever form you can. It could be a tablespoon of cooked green leafy vegetable. It doesn't take too much of time to put it in your palak or in your dal, or just probably chop it up and put it in your atta, whatever works for you. So that is the second thing that you have to put in little amounts in your diet every day. Vitamin C rich food, as I already mentioned, is something that you have to you I if you can include it, like right now it's a season of vitamin C rich food, so you can, if it's not available, you can always have an amla extract that is very handy. It requires half teaspoon of that. It's available in the market. You can easily do that. You can make it at home, whatever works for you, whichever way. That is something that you can include every single day. The next one is the berries. So again, any kind of berries again works similar to your cruciferous vegetables, wherein it's cleaning up your system drastically. Intermittent fasting is something that I suggest to anybody who is suffering from recurrent infections, any kind of fungal infections. If you have any kind of gut related issues, then it is always great to give a little break to your body. You can start with 12 hours of fasting, though that is not considered as intermittent. Intermittent starts from 14. So you can see what are you comfortable with and over the period of time work with. 14 to 16 hours. If you can't do it every day, you can try once in a week and see how it works for you. Again, each his own. Body functions very differently for everybody. So you can give it a go, provided you have a lot of digestive related problems or you're falling sick very regularly. It's time that your body needs healing, and that will be possible only when you give a break from food and let the body to heal itself. You give all the 100% attention to that part which requires healing rather than eating. And then what happens is you eat your food and then the body starts concentrating, okay, let me keep the healing on the side and let me just digest the food. So the funda is that you give good 12 to 14 hours for the body to only concentrate on healing and eliminating. And that is why intermittent fasting plays an amazing role when you're trying to detoxify or clean your system up to improve your immunity. Hydration again is extremely important. All of us think hydration karna hai because the skin needs it, or constipation ka problem hai, that is why. But in reality, your liver, your body 70% blood. Yeah, it is that. So blood is circulating constantly. And if you're not giving enough liquid to your system, how is the body going to circulate that blood very well? And the moment that volume reduces, the body nutrients that is supposed to go to every part and every organ is not able to. Result, you are eating well, but the body is not able to circulate it in right nooks and corners of the body, resulting in low nutrition, resulting in low immunity. Next one is colorful veggies. Now, colorful veggies, when you say it, all kinds of it, you still have winter in front of you. Include as much of colorful. I always say try and include at least 5 colors in a day in whatever form. If you're including that, you're making sure that you are actually um, filling your body up with good phytonutrients, which is going to fight that infection or that bacteria that is going to enter the system by any chance. So make sure that you try and include colorful vegetables. 5 is the rule that I always say. It's something that you can follow. The other one is in the form of saturated fat or flaxseed oil. Now, flaxseed oil is something that I always say you have to include it, because if you're going natural way, flaxseed oil is the way to go. Um, Ghee and coconut is something that you can try and use on your regular basis over the refined oils. Why? Because oil in general, the oils that we get in the market, the Fortune or the Safola or the Sunflower or the rice bran, whatever that is available in the market, all the oils have a tendency of increasing the inflammation in the body. And when the inflammation increases, the body's immunity, the fighting capacity reduces drastically. So you need to make sure that there are two ways of doing it. One, you use cold pressed oils, but I always suggest, even they do have a slight chance of oxidation, which is going to again work on inflammation. And that is why wherever possible, try cook your food in ghee and coconut oil. And in some places where the sabzis don't really go with the ghee, you can use the cold pressed oils and use it. So this is a major chunk of your inflammation contribution when it comes to working on immunity. So this is something that I always suggest is the first thing that you want to do. And the last one is good protein intake. Now, every function in the body, be it your hormones, be it your infection, be your antibodies that is fighting those infections, all of these things will need protein. Why? Because they are made of protein. और अगर मेरा protein intake ही low है, how much ever immunity supporting foods I'm giving, but the actual antibody जो immunity को infection को fight करने वाला है, वो ही तैयार नहीं है. How am I going to increase my immunity? So you have to make sure that there is good protein intake. Again, if you're a vegetarian, you can make sure that you're including it through your pulses and your nuts and your seeds, dairy products probably. But again, dairy is something that I always say has to come from a good source in order to make sure that there is not a lot of inflammation. But yes, these are the ways you can make sure that you're increasing your immunity. Now, inflammation, when I say, which is a number one reason of low immunity, we always start with reducing sugar, because that increases the free radical that I told you about. Sugar is going to increase that free radical, which means your immunity will go low. Your vegetable oil, as I mentioned, you have to try and reduce it as much as possible. Now, the funda of us telling people don't eat outside food, don't eat deep fried food, don't eat sugary food is not because it has calories, but because the kind of oil which is oxidized and it's going to only harm your system. Sugar, because again, that creates free radical, which is again going to reduce your immunity. Now, stress is something that I think all of us will relate to. How many of you all actually feel that you've got a cold or you've got an acidity or a very bad, heartburn or, gassy feeling the days you've not slept well? You've slept for probably 2-3 hours, and next day, kuch tha, you had to finish your work on time. you had to submit something, and next day 2 घंटे की नींद मिली, and next day you feel roll like worse. You feel cold aa gaya, you're getting a very bad headache. It's very common, right? How many of you all actually have felt that? If you have, you can just say yes or a why. Why is that? Why do you feel that? That is because the body did not get enough time to rest and heal itself. Sleep is not because you need it, but sleep is because your body needs it to heal. Similarly, when you're extremely stressed, there are so many times when you are extremely stressed, you don't get your sleep, and the next day is even horrible. Why? And at such time, when you're stressed, you're thinking too much, you have a lot of workload, a lot of relationship issues, a lot of problems at home, you fought with somebody, um, you just pissed with something, all of these things, and you will realize that it's like a rolling snow. That snowball, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden you're like, why is this happening to me? Why am I falling sick so regularly? Why am I getting cold so regularly? Is it the weather? Well, if that frequency is more, means that you need to work on your stress levels, you need to get your sleep right. These are the two very important. Smoking and alcohol, why a no? Smoking because it reduces, first, it increases your free radicals. Second, it reduces your antioxidants drastically. So, which means the vitamin C, the vitamin E, you need way more amount of that in order to work on and fight that free radical. एक तरीके से फ्री रेडिकल भी बढ़ गया और रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ विटामिन सी रिड्यूस हो गया. हमको दोनों के लिए ज्यादा रिक्वायरमेंट चाहिए होती है, and the body is anyways will not be able to do it because it's increasing the circulation is a problem, a lot of it. So I don't have to stress on smoking because you know how detrimental it is. But yeah, this is one of the aspects if we're talking about immunity. Alcohol, why? Because the moment you have alcohol, number one, the effect of it stays for more than 2 days, for more than 48 to 72 hours. While we think that it's just once that we are indulging in alcohol and it's okay, but the body is working 3 days to eliminate it from the system. The liver is functioning with 3 days to eliminate. And the moment the liver is working on your alcohol to eliminate, it has forgotten about everything. It's forgotten about cleaning up your system. It's forgotten about breaking down the food that you're eating. It's forgotten about, buffering that free radical that is around. It's forgotten about breaking down glucose, cleaning up your system, producing bile, a lot of things. So one alcohol and so many things can actually be affected by that one night of drinking for a good 3 days. So that is something that I wanted to touch upon. Erratic sleep, of course, and sleep deprivation. Apart from that, this was about the food aspect. But apart from that, lifestyle plays a major role, and stress is one of the examples. The stress, the way it can actually play with your mind and have such a big impact on the body, I think all of us have experienced. I don't need have to go dive in detail about it. Apart from that, the aspect that contributes to low immunity is first, we have turned from physical to being sedentary. We are sitting, we are working, and probably we give 30 minutes. For some people, probably nothing at all to move around and to actually help in circulating that good nutrition to every part of the body. So that is one of the problems, and that is something that needs to be acted upon. For us, it might be exercise क्यों करना है? I'm already thin. It's not needed. Well, it is needed because the circulation is going to make sure that every food, every nutrition, every toxin is actually probably circulated and goes to its right places or eliminated in the right place. So that is the reason why exercise becomes extremely important, and I can't stress less on the fact that it's going to play very well with your hormones. Your hormone regulation becomes much better. From indigenous, we have shifted to fat diets. We want quick solutions. We want something that is very convenient. We want something that can act overnight. But the fact of the matter is that we've forgotten that while this might have an effect probably in a week's time or in a day's time, antibiotic might have an effect quickly, a supplement might have an effect quickly. But the fact that naturally you are getting much more than that one nutrient from a particular food. And that is why you need to go back and work on a long-term perspective rather than going for a shortcut. Native to foreign, just because the US researches is something that we can access because we Google and all we get is all US researched foods and items, we actually forget that those Indian berries and this beer which is available now, and all of us don't, probably a lot of us don't even end up buying it. So the fact is that the more native it is, the better for us, because the nutrition it holds is much more, and it's more suitable for us in comparison to something that is imported. Apart from that, the other aspect is from culture to trends. A lot of us, it's a keto fad that we need to start. It is a fat first trend that we need to start on. It's a low carb diet that we need to start on. It is about green juice. This thing, it's about detox for a week is something that we need to start it. So these are the aspects that kind of are short lived. It's not going to give you a long term solution to what you are seeking. Apart from that, the circadian to erratic, the fact that we are humans and we have a lot of um, you know uh, a lot of things at our disposal. We can do whatever we want to. If we're working in the night, we're sleeping in the morning, we have, it could be whichever way, but trying to stick to the circadian rhythm, which means waking up in the morning and going to bed as early as possible, because the body clock works in such a way that between 11 to 3, 11 p.m. to 3 p.m., the body is in its maximal state of healing. But if you're sleeping late, you are giving lesser time for your body to repair itself. So if I'm saying, let's say 4 hours is enough, 11 to 3 for your body to heal. But this 4 hours actually acts as 8 hours for your body to heal. I mean, the impact of healing will be double of what it should be. But if you sleep at say 12, 1, 2, then you've already lost out on a lot of time for healing. So that is the reason why I always say it's very important your digestive system works in that way. A lot of us probably at a young age of say 20, 23, 24, the body takes it very well. It has no problem. But the moment we turn 31, 32, 33, for a lot of people as early as that, start, uh, you know, realizing that the body's not taking it. 12 baje kha ke aaye, next week acidic, we can't sleep. In the middle of the night, we wake up because there is a heartburn that is taking place. So all these things are actually something that you need to pay heed to, because for you it might be just an indigestion where you pop in antacid, but actually it is the gut that is giving you a sign कि आप ध्यान रखो, वरना आपका immunity is going to go for a toss and your health is going to go for a toss. Quickly, that was the diet. What is it that is going wrong is what we discussed. Now here are quick things that you can actually follow in order to make sure that you kind of stimulating your vagus system. Vagus system is basically something that is attached from your spine, basically, to all the parts and organs of the body. Now, if you're stimulating this, you're actually stimulating a lot of other organs in the body. So one is cold exposure. So basically, a hot and cold shower or a cold dip is something that really helps. It kind of shocks a little, and it improves the reflex time of the body. So that is one thing that you can try. Second thing is deep and slow breathing. I always say that breathing is something that is beautiful because it can easily trick the body to relaxing. Whenever you feel stressed, the first thing that you have to do is work on your breathing, because the moment you work on that, the body will be tricked to figure that you are actually relaxed. That is something that you want to do. The next one is music again, singing, chanting, a lot of exhalations in the form of, breathing out with a noise, which we also call as brahmari in yogic terms, is something that you can follow in order to increase the relaxation and increase your parasympathetic system. Yoga is another exercise, as we already discussed, and diet, of course, is something that we've already discussed. Now, apart from this, soaking of sun is something that I can't stress less on. Circadian rhythm, exercising, and oil pulling. Now, oil pulling is something that is it extremes amazingly well if you are suffering from any kind of fungal infection. So any fungal infection, there is a white coating on your tongue, or you keep having these fungal infection in the form of vaginal infection or a UTI, you can always start with oil pulling immediately. If you have got cavities, if you have sinus problem, you wake up in the morning and there is, this jaw tightening that is there, you can always start with oil pulling, because that is going to work beautifully with any kind of infection. So that is one thing that you can do. Apart from that, this is something that I want to quickly touch upon. This is a vast topic, but what I was trying to stress on this is that every body type is very different. While for some people, it might be very easy to digest, but for some people, it is not. So there are some people, which is usually a kapha dosha, which have this congestion all the time. And for a vata dosha, usually they keep falling sick all the time because they metabolize food so fast, they are always nutrient deficient in the body. Pitta dosha, again, for such people who have very high acidic levels, not because they're eating spicy food, but in general, their body type is such, they usually have a lot of liver related issues. So depending upon the dosha types, there are a lot of things that can be worked and touched upon. And what I usually suggest to these people, if you're somebody who's a vata dosha, which means that if you have a lot of vata, you are feeling gassy all the time, you feel cold all the time, you have a very thin body structure, then it's always good to eat good fats, which is in the form of nuts and seeds, and include warm foods. If you are somebody who is extremely acidic in nature, in that case, avoid oily and spicy foods. And if you're a kapha dosha, which means somebody who has a broader structure, a little healthy, falls might be having hormonal issues. There's a lot of congestion, cold and cough is something that you fall prey to all the time. That is, in that case, you can actually include avoid sugar and salty foods. These are the things that you want to do it. But again, this is something that is a vast topic, so I'll probably touch. But for those people who probably know and understand what these doshas are like, you will actually try and putting this in your daily routine. So this was more or less in a nutshell that I tried to include. As I said, there are no shortcuts. You have to make sure that you work consistently because, as I said, even the body takes 3 months in order to, build itself. Now, this is it from my end. All I say is there are no shortcuts. You have to keep increasing it step by including the things that I mentioned. However, I might have not touched upon a few questions that might be running in your head. So if you have any, please, this is the time you can drop in the questions in the chat box and I'll try replying them. So in the meantime, there are a few questions that I have, which I'll quickly go through. Okay, so my 6-year-old caught cold and cough so frequently and not getting recovered completely. You need to check, number one, you need to check for the sugar intake of hers, that because again, with kids, you don't really have a control of checking that. So if that is the case, then you really need to make sure that her sugar intake in whatever form that is there is as low as possible. Apart from that, I really will need to do a full assessment to actually suggest. But sugar is the number one cause of a lot of cold and cough with a lot of children. How do I identify which dosha I'm suffering from? Well, as I said, it's a very vast topic. But so this is for probably people who understand their doshas. You can probably Google it and read because it's something that is very easily available online, where there are 3 doshas and they actually tell you the characteristics of each dosha, and you'll probably relate to a lot of them. You can probably go through that, and there are loads of online quizzes to tell you that to tell you which kind of dosha you are. So you can probably go through that and do that. Any specific suggestion during work stress? Also, anything that can help in performance anxiety? Well, I always now, frankly, a lot of it is to do with the mental resilience. But apart from that, it is also very important to include certain nutrients, as I said. Stress, whenever there's a work stress, the first thing that you need to be working on is your omega-3 intake. How is your liver functioning? So probably a homocyst, if again, I'm just throwing these assumptions because a lot of time the liver is not functioning fine at such times. So if there is a lot of work stress related, number one, you need to prioritize. Diet go is much later. I mean, diet is something that you're going to work on much later. But food wise, whatever I said, the omega-3, the vitamin D, the B12, magnesium. Magnesium it works amazingly well as far as anxiety or sleeplessness is concerned, or you want to work towards healing. So that is something that these are the 4 nutrients that you can definitely consider in order to improve on your stress levels. Apart from that, breathing, yoga can't stress enough. Well, Well, as far as the details are concerned, I'll probably ask the IMT to share those details.
Sure.
Otherwise, yeah.
I'll do it. Yeah.
So, I mean, you can then get in touch if there is anything. I'm just answering the relevant ones. Can we use supplement? Of course, you can use supplement. There are a lot of the supplements are meant when you can't meet your basic requirements through diet. And that is the time when supplements come into picture. So if you're not able to do it through normal diet, you can resort to supplements. And just be mindful about the kind of supplements, because there are a whole lot of supplements in the market, but the clean brands and what is the composition that you should be using is something that is very critical. So that is something that you definitely need to check with a health professional, a sound health professional, and use it. If you're allergic to weather change and get cold and cough every time, well, if that depends upon the transition. So whenever you're transitioning, you need to up whatever these foods that I spoke of. And if you want, you can resort to those supplements also, but you need to make sure, especially during seasonal transitions, you up these antioxidant requirement drastically, because that will really help in um, uh, improving the immunity. And at the same time, you can probably start an abhyang, which is basically skin oiling or massages, because that will really help in the overall circulation of the body. After a particular age, we should go ahead with supplement. Well, I say that there is no age for supplements, frankly. For somebody who's a 20-year-old might also need it. It completely depends upon the absorption level of the body. If you are somebody whose absorption level in general is compromised, because it could be a body type that is there. So at that point of time, there's absolutely no problem. You can take a resort to supplement if need be. I think we are more or less covered. So if you're feeling tensed, I think you should start breathing. That is the first thing you should be doing. You need to start breathing. And because you can probably take up yoga, but the first thing you need to start is relieve your stress. A lot of problems start from there. I think that is the first. I think we need a session how to de-stress more than anything. A lot of people are suffering from a lot of stress here. But yeah, I think we have covered most of the relevant questions.
Okay, I think we have covered all the questions. I think we can end the webinar here. Okay, thank you so much, Naina, for being here. Thank you so much for conducting the session. I really appreciate it. And it was a very informative session. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being present throughout and participating.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.